Hello and welcome to another episode of the Orchard Report. I'm your host, William Trout, excited to be with you for another week of Bills news, where today we'll be diving into the free agency frenzy, or lack thereof, in regards to the Bills and the moves they've made and how they will impact the 2026 season. Let's dig into it. As I said, I'm your host, William Trout, and I'm happy to be with you for another week to discuss Buffalo Bills football. And like I said, we'll be diving into free agency news and the trade regarding DJ Moore and how that's going to impact the season and the team into the 2026 season in the new Highmark Stadium under Joe Brady. So here we go. Let's go ahead and dive into it. First thing is we'll address DJ Moore and the new addition to the offensive wide receiver room. The bona fide wide receiver one that we wanted to be a part of this offense, someone who can come in and immediately give us, 1,000-yard type production and multiple, touchdowns, hopefully, and also will dictate a certain, attention from defenses, and someone where they're really going to have to key on DJ, because if you just let him go one-on-one, he'll eat you up, and he can win a game for you. And that's somebody that we haven't had since Stephon Diggs, and somebody that I think we've all kind of gotten to the everybody eats mentality, and it's been fun. But at the end of the day, we want somebody who, when you got to have it, can get it, get the first down, the touchdown, the yards after catch, like that is going to make a play for you. And that's what DJ Moore is and has been throughout the duration of his career. So I said this was a free agency frenzy, but this was a trade. I've discussed this in a short previously, but I'll revisit the compensation. The Buffalo Bills did send a 2026 second round pick. It was originally reported as a mid-round pick, and obviously, that's not the case. We did send a second-round pick in exchange for DJ Moore and a fifth-round pick back, which is a pretty hefty price, especially when you consider the contract. The Chicago Bears did not retain any of that contract that they shelled out to him in 2024. He still will be making the full $24 million over the 4 years on the Bills' books. And I do anticipate a restructure would potentially happen so we can have some cap relief. But at this juncture, that has not happened yet. So it is a hefty price when you consider the second round pick and taking on all the second round, and taking on the full contract. But as I stated in the short, or alluded to, if he's given you, 1,000 plus 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns, and he's making an impact in January for the Buffalo Bills, I highly doubt anybody's going to be complaining or going to be sweating the price we paid. So let's dig into DJ Moore and talk about who he is and just, what his career has been up to this point. So he was originally drafted by the Carolina Panthers in 2018 at pick 24 overall. He was there at pick 24 overall out of Maryland. He put up, over these first 8 years, 8,213 yards and 41 touchdowns, which is just an astounding production profile. And something that we really need in this offense. And another piece that I don't think can be understated is he plays. This man has missed very little games throughout the duration of his NFL career. He's going to be out there and he's going to play for you. He's going to be reliable. The biggest ability is availability, and this man has it. So that's something I really think we can look forward to. And then the last 3 years he has spent with the Chicago Bears. So he's been catching balls from Caleb Williams for the past 2 years. He's kind of taken a downturn. I just don't think they were necessarily on the same page. But not that he hasn't produced, but it's not to the level I think many would anticipate. So I am excited to see what he can do getting in this new offense under Joe Brady, who he has worked with before in Carolina, was really productive with, had multiple 1,000-yard seasons. And I think with a new quarterback like Josh, I think that maybe we can reignite that production out of him. So I'm super excited about what he can bring to the offense. And I think that, like I said, this is what we needed, and it is something that if you can put more pieces around him and make it where you can't focus on just DJ Moore, because then we've got Kincaid, we got James, we've got Dawson, we've got insert wide receiver here. Then it really becomes everybody eats, but with studs. And that, to me, is a whole different game, and it's something that can really get you excited and can take our offense even to another level, if you can believe that. So that is the trade so far, and that is the only real offensive move that's been made thus far in free agency. It's been only on the defensive side of the ball throughout the first week or so. So now we'll dive into those defensive moves, talk about who we brought in, what the contracts look like, what to expect, and all the things of that nature. So first things first, the really big ticket item of free agency thus far will be outside linebacker Bradley Chubb. Now this is we put out a pretty chunk of change on Bradley. We did a 3-year, $43.5 million contract with a maximum of $52.5. That happened on March 12th, so about 3 days back. And when you really look at it, it's really about a 2-year deal when you're looking at the actual makeup of the deal. And I think it's really solid value for where he is in his career. It's about the 30th highest defensive end contract or outside linebacker. And I'm comfortable with paying that for someone who has produced recently, although he is coming off an ACL. I mean, he did have 8.5 sacks last year, and I think he's still building off that coming off another year. He was a high pedigree pick. He was in the same draft as Josh Allen. He was the 5th overall pick by Denver. NC State product, was a stud coming out, just a stand-up guy, everything you want in a teammate. Came out, was doing really well for the Broncos when he was a running mate with Von Miller, who was a 2-time Pro Bowler in both 2020 and 2022, and was then traded to Miami for a 1st-round pick, where he spent 3 years, or the last 3 years. Fortunately, he did have an ACL tear, which has derailed one of those years. But now he's coming off a year removed from the ACL, and like I said, he did 8.5 sacks last year for the Dolphins, and is really looking like he's coming on, and that's kind of a thing of the past. As far as career stats, he has 48 career sacks and 112 QB hits, and he's the guy that we would want in this defense. He's a prototypical fit for this scheme. He's got the motor. He's not necessarily a bendy pass rusher, but he's strong on the edge. He's good against the run, and he's going to give you, like I said, the motor for days. So I think he's somebody who will fit well into this defense. He was, like I said, he was drafted in Denver, so he knows that Vance Joseph D's scheme, and he's going to fit, I think, well into what Jim Leonhard wants to do. And I think like I said, he's a good culture fit. He's a good dude. And I think overall he's going to bring a good presence and a good production to this defense. Next up, we have Dee Alford, who is a really good story. He was an undrafted guy out of D2 Tusculum. He won a Grey Cup in the CFL with Winnipeg before signing with Atlanta in 2022. So, I mean, just like what a story. He's been a stud as a slot corner for Atlanta in the NFL. Play inside and out if needed, but he really excels at that cornerback slot. He is different than Taron Johnson. As Cover One and Locked On Bills have alluded to, he is more of a twitchy cover guy versus what Taron Johnson was, where being more like being in the box, kind of being more like strong against the run. He's more of a cover guy and someone who's going to be sticky, which I think is fine for what we need and is a departure. But I think it'll be nice to have somebody who can kind of stick with those slot guys and not get lost in coverage. And then he's also a good matchup. So I think he'll be a really good piece for us and what we want. And when you put him in that room with Benford, Hairston, and the other guys alongside like Bishop, I think that's going to be a really good core of DBs and even CJ Gardner-Johnson, who I'm about to dig into next. So I think it's really coming together as a DB room, and I think Dee Alford is something. I think Dee Alford's a guy that we're really going to like in this new scheme as our nickel back. So as I just alluded to, CJ Gardner-Johnson is the next signing. A 1-year deal. We don't have the full terms yet. I'm excited about this pickup. He's a guy who jumps around a lot. I think we're his 8th team throughout his career. He was originally out of Florida, a 4th-round pick by New Orleans in 2019. He's just a really productive guy. The knock on him is that like I said, he hasn't really stuck at teams. He's jumped around a lot. Just last year, he was on 3 different teams, but he's always produced, and he also won a Super Bowl with Philadelphia. So he brings that pedigree, and he also brings the veteran presence, but he also is just a freaking junkyard dog. He will stick his nose in the pile in the run game. He's a guy that can be rangy and make plays on the ball as like a free safety type, or a middle of the field's free safety type, or as a middle of the field type safety. And I think he will free up Cole Bishop to be more of an inserted in the box type of piece, and somebody who can be used as a chess piece as opposed to needing him to be back in coverage so often. So I think those two as a tandem, with CJ Gardner-Johnson coming in and, like I said, freeing up Cole, he's going to, I think, fit really well into this scheme and what they want to do. Like I said, he's a junkyard dog. He's got that mentality, and I think we need that on a defense. I've spoken about in the previous episode how in the past with McDermott, we were the type of defense that wanted to allow the offenses to make a mistake and capitalize on that, and now we're kind of flipping that on its head, and we're wanting to be more of an aggressive defense. I think this is a piece that really speaks to that. He is going to be the type of, like I said, the player who is going to bring a mentality and going to bring a swagger to this defense, and I'm really excited to see what he can do. Like I said, it is just a 1-year deal, so it's not like it's a pillar of the future, but I think this just indicates and it signifies what we're looking to do in it, or what we're wanting to be as a defense, and I'm excited to see what that can be. Next, and the last of the signings so far through free agency, is safety Geno Stone. So another safety on a 1-year deal. So I think this is just, like I said, I think this is a move to solidify that room and brings a veteran presence and something where, like, if CJ doesn't end up working out for whatever reason, maybe he isn't just a fit in the locker room or whatever, God forbid, then you can insert Geno, and hopefully there's not too much of a drop off in that production. So to dig into his profile, he was a safety out of Iowa, 7th-round pick to Baltimore in 2020, where he was a special teams core member, and then used that as a launching pad to go into a starting role, where he broke out in 2023 with a league-leading 7 interceptions, which was the second most in the NFL that year. And then he moved to Cincinnati, and then in 2025, you have 104 tackles, 2 interceptions, which one was a pick 6, and then 2 sacks in 17 games. I think this is, again, a move to solidify this room and just make sure that, if there is an injury, if there is something that happens, we have the guys and we have the veteran experience in that room, such that no matter what happens, I think we'll have the guys to carry us throughout the season. And it allows us just to be versatile and go into the draft with a lot more options when we're making our picks and being able to really pick the best player available. So I'm happy with what we, the moves that we made and the things that we've done so far in free agency, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because that's where we've been the most active, obviously. But not necessarily just because we've been the most active, but because of the actual pieces that we picked up, the values it seems like we've gathered, especially as the contract details have actually trickled in and we've seen what the true contracts are. I think it's really shown that we're trying to be smart with our money. I know this is pretty cliche with Bean, but he likes to fill as many holes as possible going into the draft. Try and spend smartly, so don't just throw all your money at one guy and hoping he can take you over the top, but fill the holes, try to find values, and also take advantage of that comp pick formula. Because, for example, Bradley Chubb was released. He does not count against the comp pick formula. So using those type of mechanisms and those thought processes to be smart about who we're picking up, but still filling holes, not letting everything just, go to the wayside. We're addressing these things and I'm excited to see what we're going to continue to do, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I think we need a wide receiver, a veteran wide receiver that can come in similar to how we're doing with safety to ensure that we have the experience and also the guys that can step up and play when needed, because there's attrition throughout the year, as we've seen and as we're all too privy to as fans of the Buffalo Bills. So we need to have the guys, we need to have the horses, so we can backfill if needed, and also so we can cover the holes and we can get into the draft and like I said, draft the best players at those picks, because we really just need guys. We need dudes, and I think if we can change our philosophy and draft that way, hopefully, which I don't know if there's not much to say that that's going to be the case, but a man can dream. So not to get off on a draft tangent, but that's where it kind of leads me in my thought process. So again, I'm happy with the moves made so far. I really like DJ Moore. I think he's going to be an awesome piece for the offense, a wide receiver one, and somebody who's going to hopefully get along well with Josh. I think Bradley Chubb coming off, another year post ACL, coming off 8.5 sacks. I think he can be a good piece. He knows the system. I think he'll fit in well, be able to insert and be a starting defensive end/outside linebacker. I think Dee Alford is going to be immediately a starter at a nickel and somebody who's going to be a really good cover piece for us. I'm excited to see what he can bring. And then the two safeties and Gardner-Johnson, I think he's going to be an awesome piece paired against Cole Bishop. He can really free him up, like I said. And then Geno Stone as a depth piece, someone who brings us some assurance in that room that no matter what happens, injury or otherwise, we'll have somebody who can come in and hopefully not miss a beat. So far, I'm really happy with the moves that we've made. It's covered up holes. There still are holes, plenty of holes that we need to fill. I would say that, like I said, we need wide receiver. We need some type of guard because we lost David Edwards. We need a defensive tackle, a nose tackle. I think that's a piece that we could really use. I think we could use a linebacker. I know a lot of people wanted Leo Chenal, and he went to the Commanders. So there's definitely work to be done, and I think Bean isn't done. I think, like I said, I think he's being selective with his money. I think he's trying to find values, and I think he's trying to let this play out, because free agency is not something where there's a expiration date or there's a cutoff. This is going to continue for weeks and months. So we don't need to get so caught up into what's happening right now necessarily. We need to allow this play out. And I mean, obviously, I am like y'all. I want him to make moves. I want him to fill those holes. But we do need to be patient. We don't need to jump the gun with our reactions here. So all that to say, I'll be here throughout the off season covering all the moves, and I'm sure there's going to be moves this upcoming week. So next week we can dive into the additions that were made, and like I said, how they will also impact the future, of this roster. So I'm excited to dive into all that news with you. Please drop a like and leave a comment on your opinion on what your opinion is on the moves made so far, what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see moving forward, and just anything that you have or any thoughts that you have. I'd love to read those. And I just want to thank you all again for tuning in. It's been a great ride talking Buffalo Bills football with you. And I'm happy to keep this thing moving forward and going into another season of Buffalo Bills football, hopefully watching them hoist a Lombardi next February. But I'm going to be here for you throughout the entire way, and just excited to continue to watch the Orchard Report podcast grow. So thank you all for your support, and as always, go Bills, and we'll see you next time.